And today, we're going to talk about police corruption. Yeah, it's gonna be a fun one. If it would ever click, I don't know why it does this to me. It embarrasses me every time. I try to click the slide and it doesn't click. Anyways, so what exactly is police corruption, right? It's one of those terms we hear it a lot, but it's like, all right, tell me exactly, what do you mean by it? Well, the way that academics define it is when the police use the fact that they are the police so they misuse their authority, right? So when you're the police, you have this implicit or this implied authority. And it's whenever they use that goes beyond what the policy says they can do, right? So if it's something as small as getting a free pizza or soliciting a bribe or doing favors for certain people or letting or being more strict on other people, right? It's whenever you take that authority you have and you start doing things beyond what you're supposed to be doing. So you can look at it as police corruption, right? That's one academic way of looking at it. And then you have this Barker and Carter who said, no, you can look at it as police deviance, and there's really two major forms of police deviance. And that is occupational deviance, right? This is stuff that happens during the normal police day, right? So whether it is pilfering something here, pilfering something there, or whether it's sleeping on the job, right? That's occupational deviance. Whereas abuse of authority is something that goes beyond just the work day, right? You're still a cop when you go home, right? And you still have that authority when you go home or when you're doing other things. Right, and that's when you use that authority to do something that infringes on the rights or justice that other people are supposed to have guaranteed. So police corruption can be very small, and it can also be big time. It can happen on an individual level, it can happen with little pockets of people, or it can be like organizational, and we'll talk a little bit about that. So some of the smaller types of corruption are gratuities, right? That's when you get free or discounted stuff. And while many of you are like, but wait, the cops get free stuff all the time. Yeah, for the most part, you're not allowed to take free stuff. Now, every now and then you'll have Papa John's will go drop off free pizzas at the police station. That's one thing. But if you go to a Circle K and the person there gives you free energy drinks every time, right? That technically is considered gratuities, which are not legal. And when it comes to gratuities, you can get two types of officers, right? And or two types of gratuity corruption. And you can get meat eaters or grass eaters. And you can get some cops that'll do both of these depending on the context of the situation. A meat eater is someone who asks for things, right? So if I go to... So one time when I worked at Domino's, we had a police officer come in and we gave him the pizza and we're like, it's going to be $10 and whatever cents, 65 cents, I don't know. And he was like, can I get it for free since I'm a police officer, right? That is considered meat eating. You're aggressively going after it. Grass eating is when... a police officer comes into Domino's, they order a pizza, they offer to pay for it, and we say, no, your money is no good here, right? And then they accept it. Technically, you're supposed to insist, no, I'm just a regular human being like everyone else, I have to pay. Sometimes you'll have police officers be like, look, if you give me some free stuff here, if you give me like a free energy drink, I'll hang out around your convenience store, right? And it's something you find oftentimes in neighborhoods that are a little iffy, right? Especially in convenience stores, because convenience stores by design are so are easier to rob than other types of stores, because the fact that they're a convenience store, right? It's supposed to be easy to get in and out of, right? So from a getting in and robbing and getting out standpoint, it's pretty easy. And also convenience stores seldom have regulars. Right? The whole point of a convenience store is that it's really there for people who really need something really quickly and they don't have time to go to a grocery store, or they're just passing through, right? So because of that, they're easy targets. And so when you're living in a neighborhood that's a little iffy, it might be good to just have a police officer chilling there the whole time. So if I'm a store owner, I would love to give police officers free stuff all the time to get them to just hang out at my convenience store. So I'm a police officer in that context might be like, well, if you give me some free taquitos every couple hours, we're good. Or if you're like, hey, I'll give you free taquitos if you hang out here, and then they do that, right? That is a little bit more than just accepting gratuities. You're getting to a point there of it getting close to like almost bribery, but don't try to bribe the police here in the United States, because most of the time they will not accept it, and if you do that, they will punish you harder. So be careful. Then you can have certain things that are just straight up crimes like theft and burglary, right? Especially when you're a police officer, right? They don't get paid a lot to begin with. You'd be surprised how little they get paid. And I've talked about this before, right? We pay our police officers crap, but then we expect so much of them. Like, let's expect more of them, but then also pay them more, like we do with doctors, right? But nonetheless, so if you're strapped for cash, right, you're starting to feel the pain. You're starting to feel that no one likes you because you're a cop. The public doesn't give a crap about you. People are always posting things about how the police need to be held more accountable on social media, and I don't get paid anything. And then you go to a crime scene where 2 drug dealers shot each other's heads off, and there's a pile of cash there. No one has counted any of the cash yet, right? So what if I just grab like $800 off the floor? Not a big deal. Or what if I just grab, or what if when I'm logging the evidence of, several, let's say there's like, 2 kilograms of cocaine, which is a bunch of money. That's a lot of money worth of cocaine. And I only log 1 kilogram of it. And then I go and I sell the other kilogram for money, right? That's when you're starting to get into like theft and burglary. Then there can also be sexual misconduct, where the police use the fact that they're cops to gain some sort of sexual benefits, right? And so that can blur in with bribing, right? You can sometimes use being a cop. You can be like, look, if you do this for me, if you show me this, or we go and do that, then I won't write you a ticket. Then I won't take you to jail, right? Other times, like, you've seen this in some movies before, and I don't think this happens as much as the media likes to portray. However, I always like to err. If I'm making a mistake in my judgment, I'd rather side with the victim, right? I'd rather mistakenly believe the victim and be and be known as the person who believed the victim, and who was duped by the victim's false claims, than being the person who didn't believe the victim, and then it turned out the victim was really victim. But so, when police officers are doing pat downs and stuff, right? They can be a little more liberal with where they're patting down and how they're feeling things, right? And that they're using the fact that they're a police officer to pretty much sexually assault someone. Then you can get internal corruption. That's corruption that's fueled by administration, meaning people who are in command staff or in supervision, right? When they're hiding certain levels of corruption that had happened, when they're aware of things that are going on an organizational level and they're hiding it, or they're hiding fake numbers, they're giving out fake statistics, or they are somehow duping the city council or the mayor's office into giving them more money for certain things. And then you also get, but nonetheless, internal corruption is when it's facilitated by the higher ups. And then you get police brutality, right? That's a form of police corruption that's in the national discourse currently because of George Floyd's unfortunate and illegal death. And that's when the police use, again, they are the police. The law allows them to use coercive force on us. So that means they can beat us up if they need to. They can kill us in certain contexts, right? And so when they use more force than what the law prescribes, it's considered brutality, right? So when that Buffalo police officer, knocked the crap out of that 70-year-old man and caused him to bleed out of his ears, that's police brutality, no matter how you slice and dice that. So when it comes to police corruption, it can be a few people, right, or like individuals, one person, or a couple of rotten apples, or a couple of rotten pockets, right? You have a couple cliques, just like at high school, right? You had like cliques, and oh, we're the skater punks. Oh, those are the stoners, right? The same way it works in the police agencies, right? And so you might have certain groups of friends who do some shady, stuff, right? Just like when I worked at Domino's Pizza, right? There were certain groups of delivery drivers who'd smoke a bunch of weed on their deliveries, or some of them would sell weed while they were delivering pizzas, right? Like, it's just, you get some people who get into one thing together and some who don't, right? So that's when you have those rotten apples or the rotten pockets, right? Then you get this pervasive, unorganized corruption where you just have like a bunch of people in a department that are committing their own little bits of corruption. It's just like what you would find in a lot of developing nations, right? It's not like the whole organization is like, all right, we're going to be corrupt in this way. It's just like there's such poor supervision and leadership that people can just be corrupt as much as they want. And then you get the pervasive organized, where the entire police agency like is working with the mob or with a cartel or something like that. So there's many ways that we use to explain why corruption occurs, and I think different types of explanations fit better with different types of police corruption. So you get the individual explanations, right? This is where people you try to say, okay, well, it's this officer had these types of psychological issues or had these types of financial issues and whatever, and therefore this one single officer committed the corruption, right? For instance, one thing, if you're sitting here listening to this lecture and you have really bad credit and you want to become a police officer, make sure you fix that, right? The police don't want to hire officers who have poor credit, mainly because if you have financial problems, it's very easy for people in the criminal community to offer bribes for you, right? Like, if you're not making enough money as a cop and you have $100,000 in debt that needs to be paid off, and a drug dealer says, look, for every couple pounds of weed or whatever pounds of fentanyl I bring through here, I'll give you 25% of my profits on a weekly basis. I don't know, right? That'd be pretty enticing. A bunch of money untaxed, pay off that debt, live pretty nice. Then you have structural explanations, like the way that social structure was created, right? Like during the Prohibition era, right? Alcohol was illegal, but everyone still drank it, including the police, and so it just creates like the perfect storm for police corruption. There's so much opportunity, right, that you just can't you can't get past it. Then there's neighborhood-wide organizations. Well, especially when you're policing a certain neighborhood, a certain beat where the neighborhoods are just extremely disorganized, right? You kind of feel like you need to break the rules a little bit. I think one of the biggest things is that the law gives you all this power, and then also, even though police are wearing body cams now, police work is very invisible, right? Your boss is very seldom on the job with you. A lot of encounters with the police occur, away from people, right? When you're driving and someone's pulled over and you're driving past that person being pulled over, can you hear what's going on? No, you just see them being pulled over and that's it. You don't know what's going on, right? So it's still pretty invisible. And with the body camera thing, like the police they still turn those on and off, even though policies say to turn them on, or under certain circumstances, they don't necessarily always do that. Because it's so hard to, just think about how many officers are out recording how many different encounters, right? Who's going to sit there and look through all the video, right, to make sure that officers are doing it? Like, who are they going to hire to do that, right? Who are they going to pay to do that? Sometimes if your leadership is poor, right, maybe think about some jobs that you might have had, maybe working in the food industry or wherever, whenever like a new manager would come in and things would just fall apart completely. Yeah, that would happen in the police too. If you have a new leader who's just not doing their job well, they're allowing a lot of things to happen. So, how do you become corrupt? Well, there's some people who believe that you're sort of like, if you're a corrupt person, you're sort of born that way, but that's really not the way it is. Most people think that you're developed into being a corrupt police officer, right? Most people, so when you watch those movies of like police corruption, people start off honest, right? And then they might experience a little bit of corruption from older police officers who've been on the job for a while. They might start seeing it, and it begins to normalize, right? Think about maybe some of your experiences now in college. Think about before you came to college, and now that you've been in college for some time, some of the things you thought was kind of taboo versus now, right? Like, I remember when I came to college, when I went to college, like a long time ago, because I'm old, right? I was one of those kids who was like, I'm not gonna like ever drink or smoke pot or party. It's so stupid, right? Like, even my girlfriend at the time, she and I were like, we're not partiers, we're straight edge, blah blah blah, and it was like a matter of a couple weeks until I was bonging beers, you know what I mean, or funneling beers, whatever you guys call it now. Like, we call them beer bongs. It's when you have like the funnel and you pour the beer in there and then you like drink it really fast, right? And it's just when you're in an environment where everyone is doing this thing that you thought was kind of taboo, it just normalizes it, right? It's like a natural social thing. And so if you end up at a police agency where a lot of people are accepting gratuities, right? At first you might be like, well, I think that's wrong, but everyone else is doing it and there doesn't seem to be any problems coming from it. So yeah, I'll do it too, right? And as you progress throughout your career and you see more and more of it happening, right? The more chances you take and the more you can develop into a meat-eating corrupt officer, right? It's kind of like when and then you just get corrupt organizations where and you saw a lot of this back in like the political era of policing, where entire agencies were just working with the mob or working with corrupt politicians to benefit themselves, and especially when it came to smuggling liquor, right? You're seeing some of it happening in these countries that are being destroyed by drug cartels because of American consumption of cocaine. But yeah, so you start seeing entire agencies realizing they will be better off by allowing some bad stuff to happen.